Have you ever wanted to be famous? Then maybe going into outer space is the pathway for you. Just make sure you have a fast enough car so you can drive on the highway to heaven. Just like Terry is trying to do in Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip for Nintendo Switch and PC. Tiny Terry is a stylized Grand Theft Auto-like, with the complete opposite tone of that series. Tiny Terry's world is goofy, ridiculous, and several other synonyms for silly, and I had a blast playing through it. The game establishes its tone immediately as players are introduced to Terry at a job hiring agency. He wants a job that comes with a complimentary car, ideally without the actual job part, which he gets as a taxi driver, but don't think this is some kind of taxi service game. Terry said that he didn't want to do the job, he just wanted the car, so no work for Terry. Just car. Why does Terry want a car so badly? Well, that's because he wants to become famous, and he thinks the best way to do that is to go to space, and, as we all know, the only way to get to space is to drive there. Luckily for Terry, the town mayor just spent an obnoxious amount of money on a vanity project, building a huge monument in the town square that stretches all the way into space, so they could ensure all their neighbouring island towns could see the monument and be very jealous. And, for some reason, the sides of this monument were tarmacked and painted to look like a road. It's just so inviting. But driving up at a straight vertical angle is hard for any vehicle. But luckily for Terry, his boss can add turbo to his car, giving it enough power to make the journey to space. And thus, Tiny Terry must build up to his turbo trip by collecting junk scattered around his island town and give it to his boss to increase his turbo meter. Max out your turbo and Terry will be famous. Hooray! Terry is a simple lad with several unlockable gadgets at his disposal. He has a melee weapon that can be used to break objects or launch civilians. He has a car that can be used to easily drive around town, and as this is an open world game in the Nintendo Switch generation, Terry also has a glider. Terry can use all of this to find junk that is just lying around town, but that alone won't be enough to max out Terry's turbo. He's going to need the help of the people in town, and they won't provide help for free. A big chunk of this game involves helping people out around town and being rewarded with the location of junk, often junk that's buried in the ground for some reason and needs digging up. These tasks can be short and sweet, like paying a guy 50 monies or stealing and then unstealing parked cars for cash, and then some of them are much longer side quests, like coming up with a new recipe for the beach food shack or helping a guy commit non-violent illegal activities. Some quests will lead into others, and not every quest will result in junk, but in those cases, Terry might unlock a new ability or a new cosmetic item. There are also a handful of mini-games that aren't as polished as the main game in my opinion. The soccer game can be quite frustrating, and I felt like the car battle game was always stacked against the player. There's also a Simon Says game where two of the moves look way too similar to each other for my taste, but at least in this one the timing of when you have to press the noise button is very generous. Did I mention Terry has a dedicated noise button? It's good stuff, and really hits home the light-hearted nature this game is going for. Despite how unserious Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip is, it is trying to say something. It has optional story that the player can find that provides more insight into Terry's situation and motivation, and by the end of the game I understood and jived with its message. There might have been even more hidden story waiting for me, but, and I will be honest, I kind of lost motivation to go for 100% for this one. I'm pretty sure I did do every side quest, but finding every piece of junk in town, even with the junk detector, was taking too long for me. And there are also other collectibles like blueprints and wind chimes and monies that you just have to hope you come across. The Switch version also isn't the most stable of games at times. I never had it crash or any drastic frame drops, but I could tell in some instances that the device was pushing itself to keep this game running at full capacity. It's absolutely not a deal breaker though, and maybe the added power of the Switch 2 will solve some of these minor issues. But those are the only real criticisms I can give Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip. It's not a long game at all, and I had an absolute blast playing through it. The writing is easily its most standout feature, and if you're a player who likes games that make you laugh, especially silly games, then Tiny Terry is definitely the game for you. A special thank you to Dead Good Media for sending us a copy of this game to review. I hope it has done well. On screen right now are our patrons from the $5 plus tier. We appreciate all of our patrons who support us and keep the website up and running. We have some exciting plans this year for the channel and website, and if you want to support us, our Patreon link is on screen. But even a simple like and subscribe goes a long way. It shows us what content you're interested in seeing and ensures that you always remember to return to the source.